This episode is sponsored by ODP Business Solutions, built to address all your facility needs. Visit odpbusiness.com today. Today's guest brings a unique and powerful blend of leadership, strategy, and service to the table. With a distinguished career spanning both the military and the business world, Dean DiSibio is laser focused on helping business leaders like yourself to succeed. Dean, welcome to the program.
Jeff, a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Dean, you're a first-time guest on my program. Let's start with this easy question. Let's start with your journey. Can you share a bit about where you're coming from, what experiences early in your life helped you to shape your career path, and a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, Jeff, a pleasure to be here with you today, and thanks for the invitation. I'm calling, or we are doing our Zoom here from Marlton, New Jersey. So I'm 30 minutes east of Philadelphia, born, raised, but we moved 20, we'll call it 20 plus years away from here, and did family move, military move, college, business, and then spent 25 more years here. At the end of the day, that married 38 years, thank goodness, with my wife Missy, a 38-year-old son, and a 32-year-old daughter, and also a daughter-in-law. So very blessed to have a wonderful family. Really neat to be back where we were raised, or where I was raised. You talk about that dual experience. Really was fortunate to have a 30-year U.S. Army career, 5.5 on active duty, the rest as a reservist. And then for most of that, in parallel, having a corporate business experience. And so that combination has certainly shaped who I am today. And it's been a great journey.
So talk about that a bit. Thank you for the background and what you've done for the industry and your career. But talk about how those two things have helped shape you where you're at today, your leadership style, business, military, it all came together.
As the modern workplace evolves, organizations must evolve as well. They need a partner that understands this new world of work. We are that partner. We are ODP Business Solutions, formerly Office Depot Business Solutions Division. More than just office supplies, ODP is a force for change, helping address technology transformation, sustainability, innovative workspace design, cleaning, break room, and more, making organizations everywhere say, oh, when they see how much more we can do. ODP Business Solutions.
So let me, maybe start with kind of what initially shaped, who I became. I was really fortunate at some level, frankly interesting, not to be a very good student. And for that, not a lot of options. At the end of the day, that turned into going to enlisted basic training at 18 years old. So that opportunity to kind of shape my thinking, to be able to really understand teamwork, what discipline really meant, really allowed me then to go back to school. And for that, in a 3-year period, just get a ton of both education and both, we'll call it formal education at a university, but then also to have a whole bunch of military education. What happens if you want to become an officer, which it became clear that I wanted to be, that you have a bunch of education. One is you go to an officer candidate school, and after you become commissioned as a second lieutenant, you go to a functional school. I went to the engineer officer basic school, 6 months, and then airborne school. All of this over 3 years, which started to really shape both that discipline, also really steeped you in the premises that you have to lead by example, and that you have to take responsibility for anything that may happen related to what you're in charge of. And that discipline, leading by example and taking responsibility, was probably a great initial foundation.
So thinking of that, you were a colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what that role really meant, what it involved, and what lessons you can share from that military leadership role you had that translates to business today.
That last role in the military, what happens is as you gain experience, you gain different rank, and that in between that, you consistently get educated and more training, more education. And for that, you become the ability to have larger responsibilities. That last role was with the 75th Mission Command Division. That the whole responsibility of that unit, and our tagline was to make ready. What we mean by that is that unit worked with actual units, the commanders and their staffs, to help them related to how the military makes decisions. We have the military decision-making process, and how that commander, in essence, communicates, builds and fosters trust, shared awareness of what's going on, and for that to be able to hit what I classify as mission success. At some level, there is something we have to accomplish. How do they bring that team and in essence get to that mission success? In parallel, in that business world, we're doing those same things, and it really provides you that we'll call it lens to be able to take maybe an initiative or a business goal, be able to communicate it, shape it, build teams, build awareness of what's important. And at the end of the day, it may not be mission accomplishment. It may be, we'll call it, hitting the business outcome that we're looking for.
I've heard that word mission a few times. So, yeah, mission command, mission accomplished. Was that it? Mission
Sure.
accomplished. Talk about how you applied that to your work at Imperial Day. Now,
Perhaps provide some context. So if mission command initially, but then I'll provide kind of what brought the military to that and how I've applied it into the business. So mission command became the Army's leadership philosophy post 9/11. And the premise of that leaders, that philosophy is the leaders is providing clear guidance to empower our people, in essence, to be able to make decisions, why, to foster flexibility and adaptability. Think about where we were as a U.S. Army after 9/11. We were fighting in two different battle spaces, plus all these other, we'll call it, initiatives and actions that we had to do across the world. It became clear to us that we were not growing our soldiers or our leaders. And what I mean by that is we weren't giving that ability for them to have guided initiative, for us to be able to set up what we needed them to do and allow them to be free thinking at some level, with certainly some guide rails. If we go back, Jeff, when I went to basic training in 1983. At that point, and we'll talk about through the Cold War, the Army's philosophy was battle command. What I mean by that is we told soldiers who, what, where, when, and exactly how to accomplish the mission in nauseating detail. Gave no ability for initiative. It became clear to us in this very eclectic world that happened post 9/11 that we needed to grow our folks. And at the end of the day, we did something really strange for us. We actually started to tell folks why we were doing something. And this change about it starts with why. Hence, Simon Sinek, if we look at the business world, wrote a great book, and I think it's a great connection to that military. If our folks don't know why we're doing something, but the other is that if we think about mission command, not only do we tell folks why, we help them visualize what the end should look like. But we don't fill in the gaps. We provide the guide rails and give them the ability to understand why we're doing something, where we want to get to, and give them some guide rails and give them the ability to make that happen. It's a unique differentiation, but a critical way to grow our soldiers, grow our leaders, and still get to that mission accomplishment.
Going back to your military career, think about some of the toughest leadership situations you faced. I imagine there were many, but maybe a couple that come to mind, top of mind. How did that prepare you for high stakes business decisions you face now?
Take a quick peek at the beginning of my career, go to the end, and connect it to the business world. As a very young lieutenant, after engineer officer basic course, airborne school, you go to an assignment. You're 24 years old and someone says, here's 30 people, here's the mission, here's your equipment. Go. Keep in mind, we've had plenty of training. The unit that I was taking over had just lost 2 soldiers in a horrific, terrible training accident. Obviously, a very difficult environment to bring yourself into. And it just became really clear to me, and some great coaching I got, was that certainly being empathetic to the circumstance and to the situation was going to be really critical. The other is the soldiers don't care what I know. Initially, they were going to care. It was going to be really important that I showed that I cared about them individually and as a team, recognized the trauma that they went through, and be able to provide then the ability for us to move through it, not past it, but through it, to get back to what we needed to be able to do, which was our mission. And it really provided that initial spot for me to understand that you know, folks really want to know that you care before they know, or that it's important for them how knowledgeable you may be. And that was that first ability for me to go, I need to know my soldiers individually and understand their journey and what got them there to help them get to this next stage. If you fast forward, and that we'll call that empathy need, this was kind of pre-emotional intelligence. We'll put that aside or in the parking lot for a moment. If you fast forward to the end of my career, I was asked, and I'll try to be a little non-militaristic on it, but imagine if that 75th Division, we were training commanders and their staffs to help them to be able to build teams, accomplish missions in, again, a very eclectic, difficult space. What we needed to be able to do is work with those units. And those units, Jeff, have those privates and those younger soldiers and the commanders. We actually had 2 separate divisions, folks doing it and the folks planning it. I had a responsibility at one point to be responsible for all of the trainers over both spaces, the folks, those units doing the work and those staffs. And the challenge was both those units would always kind of point fingers at each other. It's not my lane. We take care of the soldiers here, you take care of the decisions. And the reality, the same in business, you have all these different functional groups, marketing, sales, operations. It's very simple for us to have our lane and to think that that's all that's important. But the reality is those soldiers didn't care, no matter who we were working with, about, we'll call it, what our title or what function we were. They just needed to know we cared about the whole. Didn't matter if it was the private or the general. And that it really was what I classify one team, one fight, collectively. We take it to the business world. It's easy for us to be siloed in our decision making and our execution. Our ability to bring those silos together to do cross functional project work, in essence, to have one team, one fight, regardless of the role, the function, it is imperative. That military experience really helped me to shape how I think and bring teams together to be able to do just that, to get the job done.
I heard a lot of descriptions of leadership skills and styles, and we all have a boss. All of us do. But you seem to stress the I care about you component more than anything else. We hear about that a lot.
Mm-hmm,
It can be cliche if you don't really mean it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Dean. I want to talk about a book. I think you misspelled it when you sent me the note. Real Lessons in Leadership. REEL. Did you misspell that?
Did not.
Okay, talk about that. What is that about? What inspired it? And I think you have some movie lessons to share.
I do. I do. So 10 plus years ago, my dad and I, and fortunate that I have a dad that always served in the business world, and I had a great chance to be able to learn from him. Though we both have this, we see ourselves as being lifelong learners to start with, and that's so critical for all of us. And a part of that is we really have this real love of leadership, of learning about it, applying it, and growing. We also have a great love for the movies. So, as in Real, REEL, is the homage to the movie Reel, the old movie Reel. Now, of course, it's digital today. But the idea is how can we look at what are the traits that leaders possess and or don't and should, and how we can use the movies to set the conditions to have really good dialogue and discussions about those traits. And so for that, we wrote the book Real Lessons in Leadership. And we looked at some of the iconic movies like Apollo 13, Godfather, Aaron Brockovich, and ensured that what we were able to do about those characters that most people know about, and then be able to apply traits to them and to be able to really thoughtful discussions related to it. And so each chapter is related to a particular movie. It dives into the characters, the traits that they activate or don't, to apply leadership lessons.
Need to go back and watch some movies.
Yes, it is a neat way to do it. And the kind of cool thing today, Jeff, as we know, it doesn't have to be movies. We know that everything is streaming today, which is it's neat. So it doesn't need to be the movies. It could be anything related to anything that's streaming, like a Ted Lasso, as a for instance, and or we could take a look at any sort of circumstance in the world and think about folks and how they're applying these traits to be able to succeed, right?
You mentioned Ted Lasso. I don't think he was that good of a coach in soccer, but what made
Probably
him
not
different?
from the. It's a great point. Didn't even know what soccer was, right? He was a football coach, and so it was interesting that he was able to take a little bit of the art and science of leadership, apply it as he was becoming competent in the sport, and at some level developing a team and having success down the road.
Hmm. Yeah, he cared about his people. He surrounded himself with good leaders as well. A lot of good lessons. No, I see your point about these stories, fiction that they might be, but they apply. Let's talk about other leaders coming up. I know you
Mm-hmm.
care about the younger generation, emerging leaders. What advice would you give them, especially those who are moving into management for the first time. Their eyes are wide open, maybe bug-eyed, uh, either in military or business. What would you tell them?
I first say step back, give some real thought to how you want to communicate what you're going to do. In the Army, we call it the commander's philosophy. It's good to have a philosophy of how you will lead to kind of shape the folks you're going to work with about how you think. And so that's stepping back and think about the philosophy of what you're going to do and how you want to approach your people is really important. So to be very introspective up front. If we'll call it on day one, it's certainly back to that care, that ability to build connection, to really start to understand what's going on, why it's going on, and to really pause before you make real judgment. Going back to Ted Lasso, there's a great scene that really relates to how important curiosity is. So as that new leader, really be curious of what's going on and why. You'll learn a lot more if you don't apply judgment to everything you see and or hear. And you're curious about it, you ask a lot of questions, and really important. One other note is that kind of back to that lifelong learning. Really be observant of the people around you, not only the formal leaders that you work with and what they really do well. If we're not stealing, we're not trying. We shouldn't be them, but you'll learn things from folks and apply that to what you do. It is really, really critical.
Last point. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. You're experienced in structured environments, military and business. Structure is important. Where do you, from your seat, from your perspective, see leadership heading in the next decade, the next 10 years?
I think there's going to be great leveraging of AI, artificial intelligence, and organizations are going to have to really make some real decisions on what they do there. And that I would say that it's going to be really critical that we don't aim and fire, that we ready, aim and fire. And so I think organizations will spend some real time preparing how they'll leverage AI appropriately, thoughtfully, responsibly. On the other side, I think, the neat thing about leadership, it's always going to be people. It's a kind of full contact sport, right? You still need to lead folks, build teams, ensure that we get to the outcomes we're looking for. And I think it's going to be a little bit back to blocking and tackling, which is really important, Jeff, which is, setting expectations, having some measurements to ensure that we understand that we meet those needs, and to be able to have accountability. And that's a hard space to be in the hybrid or remote or world. And so I think it's going to be a real challenge. And we're going to be able to, we're going to have to apply all our learning and be very, very open to new learning.
Agreed. Yeah. Your thoughts about how people do things. I think they do fire quickly, and I'm seeing that with AI, without maybe a strategy behind it. But I guess we'll figure it out as time goes on. But Dean, thank you for this conversation. For those who would like to talk to you and explore working with you, how can they do that?
My email is leadership@clclead.com. The leadership development organization that we have is Colonel's Leadership Council. That's why. So leadership@clclead.com. Or you can go onto our website and send me a note, which is clclead.com.
And for those that were not writing that down, I'm going to put that in the video description below, make it easy for them to find. Dean, I look
Thank
forward
you, Jeff.
to digging into future leadership topics. I think you have a couple rattling around in your brain that we could talk about another time.
A few, to say the least. I really have appreciated the time and look forward to continuing the discussion as time goes on.